Hello everyone, so in this video we are going to create a ASP.NET Core Web API using a Dapper to connecting to our SQL Server, and to make it more cleaner we also implementing repository pattern in here, and we will have a create, read, update, and delete. Also if we test it, we can test using a .http file from Visual Studio. In here we can get all menu. I try send request. Okay, currently there is one data I have created, and then we can search by ID. In this case the ID 2 is not exist, yeah, and only one. So if I try to search by ID 2, we will get not found. If 1, we getting the value, and we are able to create the menu in here. We put the value in this JSON file without inserting the ID, because later ID will automatically generate it. So send request, menu created successfully. If I get all menu in here, we can see the menu is created. And we are able to update the menu. In here we update the menu. Let's update the menu 3. I will change this to name updated, description updated, and so on. Send request, menu updated successfully. Let's see again, where is it? Nice, it's updated. And the last thing, we're able to delete it. And let's change this to 3, delete, menu deleted successfully. Great, and let's see. Okay, the menu is deleted. Okay, nice. So let's create this project. Before we start, this is the requirement you need to have in your PC if you want to following this tutorial. I will put link into description, and then you will able to download it for free if you still not having this application. And if you already have, let's start by opening Visual Studio 2022. Let's create a new project and then type a web API. And we need to choose this one, ASP.NET Core Web API. Double click and then name it. For me, it's a CRUD API, Dapper. Yeah, you can name it as you want. Next. In here, we are going to use .NET 9. And then the other, you can keep it as it is. And just click create. Good, project created, and now we can delete the sample controller and class in here. We are not going to use it. I remove, and also this one. Okay, first we need to install Dapper in package. Okay, let's go to the Nugget package. I need to browse, and let's install Dapper. Okay, you can install this one. Currently in version 2.1. Okay. And we need one more package, is a Microsoft Data SQL client. This one. Okay, when you need to install this also. Right now is version 6. So we only need two packages, Dapper and SQL client. Microsoft Data SQL client. Okay, if we want to use Dapper, we need to create manually the database and table in our database. So in this case, we are using SQL Server. I will open SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, and I already have database from another tutorial. So maybe let's create another database here. Okay, let's name it as CRUD Dapper. Yeah, anything what you want to name it. And in here, instead of using query to creating a table and database, I just using this UI from SQL Server Management Studio. So we can go to the table here and then right click, new table. In this case, we will have an ID. This one is integer. Okay. We're not allowing null, and then set it as a primary key. Next, we will have a name. You will set the varchar here. 50 is enough, I think, for this. Okay, it's nullable, that's fine. Maybe null. Let's set it not null. And then for description, we can set this to 250. And then this one is allow null. And then this is price. We want to set as a real in here, and then it should be notable to null. Okay, and the last is a cat category. This should be varchar 50 also, and we can enable null for this. You can also add another column if you want to, but for now we only have this. And then the primary key is ID, and I just save ctrl-ns and name it as a menu or menu is fine. Enter. And now if we refresh it, okay, we're able to see the menu in here. Okay, great. We're already creating the table. Now I want to insert one data in here. Okay. I forgot one thing. The ID should be auto-generated. Okay, we back again to right-click on the menu, design here. Okay, in here, identity specification for ID is identity. Okay, and I save it again. What is this about? So the ID should be not inserted manually, but instead it will automatically generated by SQL Server. So if we try again, edit. Okay, we should not able insert anything in here. That's fine because it will be auto-generated. So we need to put only name. Nice. And we should able to see the data in here. Okay, nice. Let's get back to our Visual Studio project. And now we are going to create our entity in here. And we create a new folder for data access. Let's separate it. Okay, and then I want to put it as an entity. And then in here, I want to have name menu. And then what we should need input in here is all the column that we have in our menu table. We can put it manually, like what we have of IDs, name, we put manually by creating a property in here. But instead there is a easy way to do that because we already have a database. So let's get back to our database. And then right now we're selecting all the value in here, and then just put a for JSON auto using SQL Server, and then execute. By this we're getting the JSON value instead, like this. And then what we can do with this value is we can copy it back to our Visual Studio project, and then we can go to edit, paste special, and paste JSON as classes. And Visual Studio will automatically generate the class based on the JSON we passed. So I change the name to menu again and remove this one. We don't need it. Okay, later Dapper will help us manually mapping the value in database into this entity. And the other thing we need to have is a DB context. Let's having a DB context here. Class app DB context. And then let's have an interface instead in here. It's not a good way creating this one into one files, but that's fine for this tutorial since it's faster. Interfaces DB context. And then what we have in here is IDB connection, create connection. And then for this, we need to implement that interface, application DB context, and we need to implement the method of this interface, which is a create connection. That's fine. And then CTOR to creating a constructor. And we need to inject configuration in here because later we will read application setting value in here to getting the connection string. And here I need to inject the configuration, and then in here I will have a connection string. And this one, configuration get connection string. Later I will name it as a default connection. Okay, let's create a field in here. Generated field. Okay, nice. Okay, it automatically created in here. And for this one, I just return the new SQL connection of connection string we have. So we will need this DB context to opening connection to our database later for our Dapper. And let's fill the value of default connection here. Go to the application setting, and then we put the connection string tab, name it. Okay, I just copy here, so there is no wrong type in here. Default connection, and you will need put this value. Okay, let's minimize this one. Nice, you can see all. So what is this? This is we define our server. We are using SQL Server Express, and then this is our database name we are creating. If you remember, in here I name it as a CRUD Dapper. You need to put the name exactly same like you have in here. And then integrated security, in here we log into our SQL Server Express using our Windows account. That's fine because we are using a local database. And then we trust also this connection with this database. Alright, creating database now is complete. Let's creating a controller. I want to close all of it. And then let's back to the Solution Explorer, controller, and then add controller. In here, select the API and then API controller empty. Let's name it as a menu. Okay, in here basically how to access this controller by calling localhost /API/controller, which is a menu, so /menu, or something like this, localhost /API/menu, to calling our endpoint in this controller. And this what we will need to have in our controller. Okay, I create a template for this. So what is, okay, so we will have this method. This is a create using a HTTP post, and then for get or read the data from database, we will have two methods in here, both using HTTP get. One is get all menu, and the other is a get menu by ID. And also we including the ID in our root. Example in here, we will call this one as a localhost API menu and the ID. Example 2, 1, whatever. Okay. And then yeah, it's using a HTTP get for it, and there is a put for update. And same as menu or creating a menu in here, we need to include the menu entity in here. And then for delete, we're using a HTTP delete, and same way like we use get menu by ID, we include the ID any menu we want to delete. Alright, let's start with the easiest one first, and then I want to comment all of this using a ctrl K and C. Okay, and I want to enable this one only, ctrl K and U. Okay, I uncomment, and now I want to call the constructor. We need to call our DB context, IDB context, DB, or just name it a context. And then we need to assign this one. And so we able to use this context to creating a connection. So using var connection and then context create connection. Okay, we are using in here, so the connection will dispose automatically when we're not using this connection anymore. And then for Dapper, we are still using a SQL query to do anything like inserting, updating, anything read for database. So we will have a var SQL select, let's make it a star from menu. And then let's return a connection call query. This one will using a Dapper, in here. And then let's put a menu, so Dapper will convert our SQL into menu class in here. And using our SQL. Okay, you will not able to return automatically, but instead result So in here, we can see Dapper will return to us a enumerable of menu. And then what we can do is we can just return it OK of result. Nice. Now actually get menu is complete. Let's try it. How we try it? We are using HTTP file in here. Okay, I pin it again and double click. Okay, this one still using a weather forecast. This is our sample endpoint before. I just change it to API menu. Okay, before we start, I forgot to mention you that we are already creating an interface and application DB context in here, and we are using on the controller we injecting in here. So if using a ASP.NET Core, we need to register this one before we are able to use it. How to register it? We need to go to the program.cs and then builder services, add scope. We are using a scope one in here. Application DB context. Oh, it's automatically nice. I just tap it. Okay, this is what we need to have. So we register it that this interface will be implemented this class. And after this, we should able using and injecting the DB context here. And let's try again. And now I go to this one and I send request. And we able to see the value we have in our database. Great. Now I can close it and then go to the back on the controller. But there is something we can improve in here. Actually, it's not good idea to put this query in same class with controller. Actually, in real life, you will need like a service and then repository to do that. But to make it fast, let's having a repository only for this. So instead of calling the query inside this controller, we will have a repository to do that, and then we will call the repository to showing the data. And then let we have a class of no folder, I mean repository. And then I create a new class menu repository, and then I will have an interface in here, public interface menu repository. Again, you should have another class for this. Actually, you need to separate this, but yeah, for now I think it's fine. So what we'll have in here is we will have a enumerable menu, not menu repository, menu, and then we need to using an entity. Why it cannot using CRUD data access entity. Okay, well, I need to manually, and then get all menu. Let's implement the interface. Okay, and implement interface, and then we need to again injecting the DB context in here, the application DB context, and then create an assign field. And then, okay, let's copy from the controller. I copy all of these to here, and then in here I can return. Okay, and now in our controller, I just need to injecting the repository. So menu repository, and then create an assign field. And we can delete this. And for this one, I just need to have a menu repository get all menu. It's more cleaner. So we're not doing any database query in this controller. Instead, we are doing that in repository. But same like we're using a DB context, application DB context, we need to register this also. So we need to register menu repository that implemented for menu repository. Now it's complete. Let's doing for get menu by ID. And let's start by doing a menu repository. We have a menu get menu by ID and integer ID, nice. And then implement it. Okay, if you don't know what I click, basically I click etc and dot, so we are showing this value. Or you can just right click and then quick action and refactoring. Okay, there is a shortcut like this, and then implement interface, nice. And then what we have in here is I just copy it. Okay, this one is returning a list. We want to returning only first value, and we want to adding the ID in here. So we select all the value from menu when the ID, where the ID equals to add ID, and then the ID in here we need to define it. So okay, we are not going to this one, so I just remove query or default, query first or default, so it will taking only first value in the list or empty value. Menu SQL and the new ID equal to ID we put on the parameter. Okay, it's having a warning in here because possible null reference return. Why? So in here query first, it's mean we get the first value in the list where the ID equals to ID. Again, if we have a multiple, it's not possible because it's primary key. But in example, if you are using a query first or default and then there is a 2 value there, it's only returning first value in the database row. And then if there is no value, it will returning a null. That's why there is a warning, because in here we define we are not returning a null value. Okay, let's having a null in here and null in here. So we able to returning a null value also. And back to the controller, we enable it, Ctrl K and U, and then in here file result is menu repository, get menu by ID, and then let's check it. If result is null, we return not found. Menu not found. But if result is not null, we return okay. Oh nice, it's automatic. Okay, and let's start it and test. Okay, we'll have another menu in here. I copy and paste here, and then menu 1, yeah, we want to get a 1, and then send request. Okay, we're able to see the 1 value in here. This is the ID 1 because we only have 1 data. Example, we put 2, yeah, and send request. Now we're getting a menu not found with status 404 not found. Now read is complete. It's easier to do read. Now let's having a create in here. Let's start from the repository first. We will have a boolean, so it will return boolean create menu. So create menu will return a boolean true or false, true if complete or false is valid, and then we accepting the menu entity. Okay, we need to implement this, implement interface. Where is it? Okay, this one. And same, we need to, I copy and paste here. We need to create a connection. We always need to create a connection when defining in the method. And then we need to having an insert query. We need to define a var SQL. This is for query to inserting the data. Okay, to make it fast, okay, you need to use this query. I believe you already know about the SQL query. So yeah, in Dapper, this is how we are going to inserting data to database using a SQL string query in here, and we need to define the parameter we put here like we do when get menu by ID like this. And then var result connection, okay, execute, nice. In here, yeah, not new, but just returning a menu. So the Dapper will automatically detect the property in here and then mapping that value into this parameter. and then it will return an integer. Integer is how many row changed into our database. So in this case, we inserting one value, one menu in our database. So what we expect in here, we returning 1. So we can define that if it's returning 1 row, it means creating menu is success. So return result more than 0. So if result more than 0, we will return true. But if 0 or less, it will return false. And then let's get back to menu controller, and then we enable it again. And then var result menu repository, create menu. If result is true, then return OK. Menu created successfully. But else, yeah, let's return a bad request. Now let's test it. Start. And then let's go to the .http again. And then we will have a new request in here. And we change to post because we are using post, if you remember, in here, HTTP post. And then API/menu. And in here we need to adding the JSON file because it's accepting the menu entity in here. So you need to input this value. We don't need to include the ID, as we said before that the ID will generate it automatically. And let's try it. Send request. Nice, menu created successfully. And then I want to get all menu in here. We're able to see a second value in here. Okay, we can stop it. The next thing we want to update. Let's having update. I duplicate and just change to update menu. And then implement it again, implement interface. And yeah, I just copy here. And you are going to need this SQL query. Update menu and with this value where the ID is ID. Okay, this is a basic SQL query to update the data. And then same, let's have a var result connection execute, putting the SQL and the menu in here. Actually same like we have in here. I just copy in also. So if returning more than 0, it will true, else it will false. And now we can call this in our controller. Where is it? Update is put. Okay, I open it again. But in this one, instead of calling directly update, we want to calling get by ID first. So we want to check if the menu is exist or no in our database. If exists, we can proceed to update. But if no, we need to return a not found. So var current menu, current menu repository, get menu by ID, menu ID, and then if current menu is null, we return not found. Okay, I too lazy, I copy and paste here. And then if current menu is exists, then we do a menu repository update menu. And yeah, basically it's same like this. Var result equals to this. So if result true, then menu is updated successfully, else it's a bad request. Okay, there is something wrong in here. It should be updating from parameter instead from the current menu. Okay, we get this one instead. When we updating, we will insert the value of menu we want to update in here, and then we will check if this menu is exist or no in database. If exists, we will replace the value in database to this menu in parameter. So let's start and see. We back to .http file in here, and then Let's copy from here, update. This should be put. Oops, put. We are using HTTP verbs put, and then the endpoint still same. And we need to include the ID in here for update. ID is we want to update the item 2 in here, item with ID 2. So let's put 2 in here, and for this one maybe I want to change the name to name updated. And then if we try to update here, menu updated successfully, and let's verify get menu by ID 2, send request. Okay, now name is updated. So the update function is success now. Let's continue to do the delete. So we can start by doing on the repository here. I just duplicate and then delete menu here, but it's accepting the ID only. Okay, let's standardize it like ID in here. Oh, I stop it first, sorry. Okay, we have a delete menu and we implement it. And then in here, let's copy from this one, copy and paste here. We open the connection, we delete from menu where ID equals to ID in here. And then for result in here, we will connection execute the query and putting the parameter of ID here, ID equals to ID. And then like usual, we will return true if result more than 0. And let's implement it on the controller. Okay, we enable it. And I want to check still from here. I copy and paste here. And okay, this one it's better put same, yeah, the small ID. And then we get menu by ID, we put the ID from parameter. And then if current menu is not exists, we return not found. But if exists, okay, I copy this also. We will delete menu by inserting the ID. Okay, and menu deleted successfully. Okay, let's start, check it. And let's go to the .http and we'll have delete. I just take from here, I copy and paste here. Better we put the header here, delete update. And this one create, this one get by ID, and this one is get all. Okay, we want to use delete HTTP verbs. You want to delete the menu with ID 2, send request, menu deleted successfully, and we try to see get by ID 2. Nice, it's return not found, then the delete function is success. Okay, now all the feature is complete. We successfully creating CRUD using ASP.NET Web API and using a Dapper. And for next video, we are going to create a front end to consume this API. So stay tuned, and if you are having question, you can ask on the comment below, and thank you.